Hello and welcome to Bloody Good. My name's Emily and this is From the Page to the Screen, a show where I look at horror media and the books they're based on to determine just how accurate they are. Today, I'm looking at Cold Storage by David Koepp and looking at what changes were made from the book to its film adaptation. Cold Storage revolves around a fungus from outer space that is extremely intelligent and adaptive and whose main purpose is to spread as far as it possibly can. It can change its molecular structure to make its way through almost any material to find itself a host. It gets trapped hundreds of feet underground inside a government facility, which has more recently been converted into a storage facility. The basement level containing the fungus has been forgotten about, and its refrigerated safety is failing due to climate change. It's up to 2 workers at this storage facility to stop this fungus breaking out and infecting the entire planet. So let's dive in. First, let's look at our characters. Our main characters are Travis Tea Cake Meacham and Naomi Williams, played by Joe Keery and Georgina Campbell, respectively. They both work the graveyard shift at the Atchison storage facility. Now, I think Joe Keery was a great choice for Tea Cake. In the book, he's a guy who just kind of goes on and on and on and just can't help himself, and Joe Keery does this rambling and goofiness really well. And he delivers the comedy in this film really well and does some great physical comedy. But I do miss how much he swore and was all around a bit annoying in the book. But obviously you can't throw too many swears around without pushing the film to an 18 rating, so I do kind of get it. Georgina Campbell is great as Naomi. I think I prefer Naomi in the film to Naomi in the book because of her performance. She's really charismatic and she feels like a real person who's been thrown into a very strange situation. She's level-headed when she needs to be, but she also has her moments of panic. And overall, I think they both have great chemistry and bounce off one another really well, and I think the film really lives or dies on this relationship, so I think they smashed it in terms of casting here. Rewinding to the first people who encountered the fungus, we have Roberto Diaz in the book, who becomes Robert Quinn in the film, and who is played by Liam Neeson. Now, I love Liam Neeson, I have ever since I saw Phantom Menace as a very small child, but I wish he had more to do in this film. Roberto is a Pentagon bioterror operative, and is a really interesting character in the book, and in an attempt to condense the story to fit its runtime, I think a lot of Roberto was lost, not just in the name change, which we'll come to later. Roberto's partner Trini Romano is played by Leslie Manville, and Trini features heavily in the opening few chapters of the book, but very little beyond that. And unfortunately, the opening of the book, where we spend quite a bit of time with Roberto and Trini before they encounter the fungus, is completely scrapped from the film. We only meet them once they arrive at the scene of the outbreak, and as a result, Trini doesn't have a lot going for her in the film, she's just kind of there. While investigating the fungus, Roberto and Trini are accompanied by Dr. Hero Martins, who's played by Sosie Bacon in the film. She's a biochemist who has been sent to collect a sample of the fungus. In both the book and the film, she becomes infected and dies. However, much like Roberto and Trini, we just have very little time with her before they arrive at the location of the fungus outbreak, and thus we don't really get much of her. There are a bunch of other characters who don't have a whole lot of screen time, but I'll give you a quick rundown. We have Griffin, who's played by Gavin Spokes, who is Tea Cake and Naomi's boss. He's running a secret storage unit where he's selling stolen televisions, and in both the book and the film he comes with a gang of folks who he's selling these TVs to, and they all get involved with the fungus hijinks. And there are some great names within this bunch, including Cedric, Ironhead, Wino, Cuba, Garbage, and Dr. Stephen Friedman. And that last one is a really good bit, and it made everyone in our screening laugh, but he just doesn't have a nickname, and it's just funny. And Monty also thinks that the one called Garbage is maybe a reference to a character called Trash in Return of the Living Dead. Who knows? But they're a fun little gaggle of characters that get some good gruesome stuff going on with them. We also have Mike, played by Aaron Heffernan, who is the father of Naomi's daughter. In the book, Mike just so happens to be near the storage facility and gets infected as a result of a cockroach escaping and infecting him. In the film, however, he's arrived at the storage facility to speak to Naomi, and he suffers the same fate regardless. And we have Mary Rooney, played by Vanessa Redgrave. She turns up to enter her storage unit, which contains her dead husband's belongings. In the book, she wakes up from a nap in her unit to find all the crazy goings on, and she shoots Mike when he's about to kill Naomi and Tea Cake. In the film, she enters her unit and pulls out a gun and almost shoots herself, and then decides to take a nap instead. And she emerges later in the film and also shoots Mike. In the book, however, Mary is Mike's mother, and after killing him, she exclaims, "That boy just wasn't right." But in the film, they're seemingly unrelated and it's not touched on. Now let's examine the plot a bit closer. The book is by David Koepp, who is famous for writing a lot of screenplays for some of our favourite films like Jurassic Park, Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, and 2 Indiana Jones movies. With Cold Storage, Koepp got to write the screenplay based on his very own book. And as a result, this film is really faithful to the original source material. Most of the changes in the film are minor as a result, but let's explore them. The The book opens in 1987 with the first discovery of the fungus by Roberto, Trini and Hero, before jumping to 2019 where we find the bulk of the story occurring. The opening of the film is pretty similar to the book, although it's played a lot more dramatically. Something that struck out to me immediately was the shape of the roofs on the houses. Having read the book, I knew that's where the bodies of all the residents were, so the shape of the roofs being like this really bugged me, because it should have been really obvious that that's where all the bodies were. But they didn't show any of the bodies until Trini got up on a roof, and then all of a sudden they could see all the bodies on the roofs, and one on an aerial. It just struck me as a bit of a strange choice to make, but who knows. Hero's infection is much more dramatic in the film too. In the book, we get the luxury of commentary of the fungus itself as it infects its hosts, and in the book we know the fungus has made its way through Hero's boot and into her body, and before she really has the chance to register what's happening to her, the fungus is in her brain and comforting her that everything is okay. But then she realises something's wrong and kills herself to prevent spreading the fungus. In the film, she gets in the truck and tries to drive away before ultimately killing herself too. Just added a bit more drama to the scene, and it also establishes a chronic back issue for Robert when she hits him with the truck. In the book, Roberto's back problem is just down to him being in his 60s by the time we pick up with them later, but the film makes this injury the source of his back problem. As I mentioned earlier, Liam Neeson's character is Robert Quinn, unlike his book counterpart Roberto Diaz. This is likely because they wanted Liam Neeson in the film, so it was just easy to change his name to fit to his Irish heritage. And while I love Liam Neeson, it did mean a great part of this book was cut out. While Roberto is speeding to get to the storage facility, he gets pulled over by a police officer who notices arsenal in the back of the car. And he's on a time crunch to reach the facility, and he's debating killing the officer for the greater good of the world. But he's nervous because the cop said his surname in a way that would insinuate he's racist, and he also has a tattoo of the cross from the Confederate flag. And Roberto hopes he's white passing enough to convince this guy he's just arming himself when he's a true patriot. And the cop just lets him go, and it's a nice little scene in the book that I personally missed in the film. The film is only an hour and 40 minutes, so a lot gets condensed or shortened to fit with the quick run time. In the book, Tea Cake has a crush on Naomi and has gone as far as to follow her home one morning after their shift, and the film doesn't delve into any of this stalking and has them meet each other for the first time at the beginning of the film. And this was a change I was happy to see. It's an interesting part of Tea Cake's character, but I didn't think it was necessary, so yeah. Naomi's baby daddy, Mike, has a different introduction in the film. In the book, he parks up in the woods where he intends to bury 2 bodies in his trunk, and these bodies turn out to be a deer he hit while he was drunk driving, and his old family cat who he shot in a supposed attempt to put out of its misery. He hears thumping in the trunk, and he opens it to find both of them infected, and then he becomes infected and terrorizes Tea Cake and Naomi in the storage facility. In the film, however, Mike turns up to the storage facility after desperately calling Naomi to try and talk to her. He's killed the cat who's in his trunk, and he hears the thumping in the trunk and opens it, and the cat jumps out at him, and it's a little bit scary. Before it runs up an aerial and it explodes, and it infects Mike and a nearby deer, who then both go into the storage facility, so he hadn't already killed this deer. And I think we lose some of the gore here because the book describes the fungus reanimating the deer's corpse, which has been shattered by being hit by Mike's car. But with the deer being perfectly okay until the cat explodes, we lose that. But I will say, when the deer explodes in the storage facility, it's pretty gnarly. In the climax of the book, Roberto is semi-paralysed on the floor, and Griffin shoots himself unintentionally while attempting to kill Roberto and escape the facility in Roberto's car. In the film, however, Trini shows up and saves Robert. In the book, Trini does not reappear after helping Roberto get the nuke that they used to kill the fungus. It was a nice surprise to see Trini there, but I don't think it was necessary at all. I wonder if it was a contractual thing because Leslie Manville is a pretty big star and was otherwise in the film only very briefly, so they wanted her to have a hero moment too. But it just felt like an extra body at the end that didn't really need to be there. At the end, we meet up with Tea Cake, who's now going by his real name Travis, and Naomi in a park with Naomi's daughter, having a quiet little moment together. They don't have their admission of love or share a kiss like they do in the book, but you can tell they've got feelings for one another. But one bit I did miss from the book was Roberto sealing Tea Cake's criminal record to make his future life easier. It's just a nice little touch that made me smile while I was reading, and I missed that in the film. The final shot of the film has us looking at a pack of deer on a field while one looks directly at the camera and then vomits that good old fungal slime right at us. Cuts to black, and the credits roll. In the book, everything was fixed and the fungus was gone, but as most films tend to do nowadays, it left a little opening for a potential sequel one day. With David Koepp at the helm of both the book and the film, it's no surprise the film is a really faithful adaptation, bar the few small changes as we mentioned. Overall though, I am going to have to give it to the book on this occasion. While there are some really good performances in this film and loads of fun, action and horror going on, the book was just brilliant and I couldn't put it down once I started it. If you've read the book and or seen the film, let me know in the comments what you thought of them and maybe which version you prefer. And if you're a fan of horror books, I've previously covered some Stephen King books such as Mr. Mercedes and The Outsider, so check those out. And if you've got any recommendations for your favourite horror books and their adaptations, leave them in the comments too. And if you're just a horror fan in general, why not subscribe and check out our other videos, where we look at the making of horror franchises, and look out for videos where we examine how true some based on a true story horror films are. We're a growing channel, and we'd really love to have you along. Thanks for watching.